Today on Locked On Canadiens, we had our two Xhekaj game, and it was everything we hoped for and more.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Laura Sab, also known as The Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Ian Boisvert, my co-host, also known as Maybe It's Ian. And Ian, this time last year, Florian Xhekaj was very much an unknown quantity for the Montreal Canadiens. This time this year, he's been put in the lineup with his brother, and all of a sudden, we're really excited to talk about him for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, we got a front row seat to a really fun Florian Xhekaj story last year. You know, his first pro season, scores 20 goals, fourth liner, but an effective one at that. And we thought he was great
goals.
in the playoffs as well. 24 goals. I mean, but who's counting, right? I mean,
I'm counting.
But like, you know, that sort of set an expectation for him that, you know, we all kind of laughed at Nick Bobroff for calling him the unicorn. And I'll always bring that up because if he shows the promise that if he evolves into the promise that he's shown, we kind of got to hand it to the guy. Like, that was a great pick, and it wasn't just we know his brother. It seems so far that they might have one here in Florian Xhekaj.
And we will talk about that a little bit later in this episode. We've got a very Xhekaj themed episode, really, because we want to talk about the brothers playing together and this particular game that's in the second segment. And then Florian will come up in our conversation with the bubble players and who right now is running away with the competition there after two preseason games. But first, let's talk about the game as a whole. Ian, I don't know about you, but the moment I saw Nick Suzuki, Caufield, and Juraj Slafkovsky play together, my heart grew. It felt like we were home. I know it's just a preseason game, but there's just something about that line that screams to me, this is a reason to have joy.
Yeah. You know, we talk a lot about the identity line from last year, right? Which was the fourth line, or, you know, whatever you wanted to call it. I think now that identity line is that top line. That line will be the Canadiens' identity as far as they will take it. Of course, they score early. They score within the first minute of the game. Cole Caufield has a habit of scoring in first games for him. I remember his first game in Laval, he scored. I think he scored 2 in that game, if I remember correctly. You know, he loves to score on the season opener. He does that with some regularity. It was very nice to see that line pick up exactly where it left off. Suzuki makes a great play at the blue line to just take the puck away from a guy who probably shouldn't have had it to begin with. And Hudson joins the rush and makes a great play over to Caufield. It was, like you said, it felt like, okay, we're back. Like, the season's back. We're watching that line score. You know, I thought that at times Slafkovsky looked like he didn't have as much room as he might have thought. He takes that skate in the face, gets stitched up, first shift back out. He sets up Suzuki for a goal. So no worse for wear on that one. Very scary incident. I'm glad, you know, he turned out on the better side of that. But yeah, it's great to see that line back together. I really enjoy watching it. Who knows with Demidov how much longer we'll get that line, but that line right now is still cooking.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, we talked about how good it was to see them. How good was it to see Lane Hutson again? And we always talk about how the preseason means nothing. Like, we are Montreal Canadiens fans. We have seen the Montreal Canadiens go through preseasons with like 10 games, and then they're undefeated in 10 games, and then they fall flat on their faces as soon as the regular season starts. We're only taking these games for the moments they're giving us, right? We're not taking these games as an indicator of what the season's going to look like or anything like that. We're not making predictions about the season overall, but we can kind of look at micro moments, and we can kind of talk about what some of these players are showing. And somebody I really wanted to bring up was Tyler Thorpe, because we talk about joy in one sense where it's just skill and pure skill and like scoring, and then you've got the joy in calculated violence.
Yeah, calculated violence. He's a big guy. He'll throw the body around. What I found I was most surprised by was his play along the boards with the puck. That set up the Xhekaj goal, the first the Florian Xhekaj goal, and it's hilarious that I have to be more specific. I think that along the boards he kind of invites contact. He wins a battle. He then makes a very smart play. Instead of just like rimming the puck around the boards and going up the boards, he knows that Xhekaj is behind him and he gets him the puck, who was able to take a shot and score. So I think, I was shocked by, the skills on the wall. Every big guy can be big on the wall and just be big, and that's all they do. Like, he was able to create offense, not only on that play. There were plays later on in the game where it was a similar thing. He gets in on the forecheck, he has the puck against the wall, and he makes a good play with it. If he can find a way to do that, and he's a fourth line player in the National Hockey League, and they can chip in the odd goal once every week or so, like, that's you're feeling pretty good about it, about that kind of guy. It's why the Canadiens probably felt good giving him a contract and having him, go to the American Hockey League this year. They feel he can be a difference maker in the AHL, and they can probably rely on his development. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing with, like, with picks like this, we talked a lot about them going always for the big guy, the physical guy, the tough guy, et cetera, et cetera. But what I think the Montreal Canadiens are trying to do, and again, I'm not all the way in agreement with them just yet, because I really do believe in skill and speed and all of that. But I think, like, what they're trying to do with these tough guys are getting, even the ones they picked this year, is that they're trying to find an element that they bring that is more than just that, right? So
Right.
maybe his play along the boards was what attracted them to him. Like, like, looking at each one of these guys, they're not just violent gentlemen, right? They're not just career AHLers that are big and can punch faces or can throw hits, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like they're trying to put together certain skills and kind of have it be a combination, have it be like kind of like making a pie. We're running out of time in
Yeah.
our first segment, but we really do need to get to this, and we don't want people to preemptively get upset with us. But David Reinbacher, tonight's game was not the one. I'm going to say it was not.
No. Yeah. I found that him and the puck disagreed quite a bit on this night. The goal, the Richard goal against, he bobbles the puck at the blue line. That was one where I don't necessarily blame him. It was a bouncing puck. But it was sort of emblematic of the whole night. He was fighting the puck a lot in this one. There was one play, I believe, let me find that. It was in the first period. He's trying to make a breakout, and he makes one play on the breakout to move the puck up the ice. It gets blocked and sent back to him. And he immediately tries to do another one. It gets blocked and sent back to him. And then the Flyers are in the offensive zone. Like, it was not a strong night from him. Now, it's his first preseason game. I'm not all that concerned. It certainly went better than his last preseason game, which, he did not play because he blew out his knee very early in that contest. So, this is still a learning curve for him. We were all really excited with him in the playoffs last year for Laval, and reasonably so. He was great.
Yeah.
This is a different beast, and I think maybe nerves played a little bit into it, but he wasn't all that strong.
I feel that it's possible to me that whenever we see him have games like this, even in Laval, and obviously he hasn't played that many NHL games,
Mm.
or preseason games, or whatever you want to say. Like, I feel like
It's literally just this one and the one his knee out in. Like, those are the two
every
preseason games he played.
yes. But even in Laval, when we're not super happy with his game, sometimes I wonder if it's a situation where he's just not fully in tune with his assignment. And then once he actually knows what his role is supposed to be, he performs it very well. That's the view that I saw in the playoffs. Like, when I liked what he was doing, it felt like he knew his place. He knew what he needed to do, right? And so I wonder if that was just it. Like, in this case, it was like either a communication gap or a processing gap or something like that. There's absolutely no reason for us to think that, like, he, like, this game means anything other than, he needs to figure something out so that he can play better the next time he's on the ice. That's all.
Yeah, for sure.
Any final words on the game overall before we move on to our Xhekaj talk?
Yeah, just quickly on goaltending. Dobes looked great. He didn't get a lot of action. I think he made 9 saves on 9 shots through half of the game. His job is safe. Kakkonen was not very good. I know a lot of people were like, oh, it's tough coming in and facing a breakaway right away. Hey, that's the life of an NHL backup, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
he knew he was going in at the 10-minute mark. That's the most notice you'll get as a backup, that you're coming into a game. So, like, I understand people are saying, oh, they kept saying on the broadcast, oh, it's a tough situation to jump right in. That's the gig that he's auditioning for. So, like, I we can only judge him against that. He wasn't strong. The power play goal he gave up was not good. We'll talk about the penalty that was taken before that. They gave him that power play. They gave Philly that power play. But I think Dobes' job is safe as the number 2 in Montreal. And Kakkonen will be a strong AHL goaltender like Laval saw last year in the playoffs when they ran into him.
Absolutely. And I think there's again, this is the thing. The last time there was a tough situation like that, it was Jakub Dobes with no notice coming in at home in the playoffs, and he still managed to win the game. So the life of a backup goaltender, as you said, they got to figure it out, right? Again, he's not going to be the NHLer, so we don't need to worry too much about that. If he can perform in the AHL like he did last year, the Rocket are going to be fine. All right, up next. I know we love the opportunity to talk about any Xhekaj brother, and we are about to do that in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right. Earlier today as in the day that we just watched the game, Florian and Arber Xhekaj's mother surprised them by coming to Montreal for their game, which I thought was adorable. After I only found this out once after the fact. That I knew that she was at the game because of the broadcast, but I didn't know it was a surprise until I saw it after the game. And boy, was she in for a treat. I think her boys really had themselves a game. And I would like to posit that Arber was not as exciting as Florian in this game.
Yeah,
Is that
I think
a fair
that's
statement
fair
to make?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think the challenge with the Xhekajs in total, like the both of them, is that they will always attract an inordinate amount of the attention, the oxygen in the room. These are, for all intents and purposes, a third pairing defenseman and a bottom 6 forward. And yet the cult of personality that they own will keep them in the conversation forever. It's something that I think the Canadiens as an organization have done well to manage and to balance. I think it's also helpful that they have a lot of other players that attract a lot of attention, like Lane Hutson, Cole Caufield, Nick Suzuki, Ivan Demidov. Like, those guys eat up a lot of the oxygen too. Like, I couldn't imagine the Xhekaj brothers playing for, I don't know, right now a team like Pittsburgh, where there's not really a ton else going on other than, where's Crosby going? But if they had the same level of attention that they have in Montreal and Pittsburgh, I think it would go differently. Let's start with Arber, because I think his preseason last year was bad. It was just bad. Let's call a spade here. It was bad. It was not good. He spent too much time in the box and ejected. And through the first section of this game, he does a really good job of controlling himself. He then draws a penalty, and immediately, instead of taking the power play, he seeks retribution on a player who went after Vinzenz Rohrer, which I get why you do it, but you don't need to start throwing punches in a preseason game on a player who doesn't want to fight you.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it, and Arber Xhekaj still has not figured that out.
There's something
which is unfortunate.
yeah. there's something that Arber is able to do, and I wonder if he knows that or not. He's able to be physically intimidating without touching a guy. And I want to see more of that. I just like sometimes I wonder if he knows that in the way that he plays. Like you said, he's good at
Yeah.
drawing the penalty, right? Like and last season we saw him improve greatly on the, allowing the craziness to come to you and then remaining out of it and just kind of like driving other players crazy, drawing those penalties, making them come after you and then, catching them in a mistake. Like he was able to do that very effectively. And sometimes I wonder if he forgets that and that's when he resorts to behavior like that because I agree like you have to protect your teammate like and we forgot to talk about Vinzenz Rohrer. Oh my god, we'll get into that in our third
I want to
segment.
talk about him in the third segment because I think he's firmly on the bubble.
Yeah. But you want to protect the kid. You want to do that. You want to send a message not just to the team that you're playing, but you want to send a message to that player too. Like we talked so much about last year how Buffalo just didn't have that mentality where you would go after their players and they wouldn't stand up for each other, right? We talked about like back in the day when the Habs were dysfunctional, that wasn't happening. So you do, to a certain extent, you need Arber to stand up for you, but just that's not the way to do it because then you're taking yourself out of the game, you're putting your team in an unnecessary hole, and you're taking yourself off the ice for no reason. Like you're much more effective on the ice.
Yeah. Well, I was really liking his game to that point. And, you said like he needs to find a way to do that without, touching somebody, but he's allowed to do that. Like grab him by the front of the jersey, stinky glove him, do that. That's fine. He looked over his shoulder, saw Vinzenz Rohrer get up and was totally fine and skated off. Like it was not much of a collision. And Arber Xhekaj's first instinct is gloves off. I'm giving haymakers to this guy. Like he's lucky he didn't get tossed from a preseason game again. And I hate to be like, I thought the rest of his game was awesome. And I think that's why I'm drawn to this moment, because in a moment like this, it could throw the entire rest of the game away for him. I can't find it in me to be like, well, if you take out that one thing that shows he hasn't learned how to control that aspect of him, it's fine. That's the whole game. Like for Arber Xhekaj, that's the bit, man. If he can get that reined in and under control, the Canadiens have a legit player here. But as long as that continues to be a problem, he literally took the Canadiens who were going to go on the power play, put them shorthanded, and they gave up a goal. Like, people wonder, like, well, why does Marty put Jayden Struble in over him? Because Jayden Struble won't do that.
Yeah.
Jayden Struble does not have the gifts that Arber Xhekaj does. But he also won't do that. And coaches are drawn to eliminating that sort of thing. So I get it. And I'm not going to harp on this forever, but like it goes case in point with all the stuff we've been talking about since this guy broke into the league. And I'm getting it to a point where it's like he has to start making that decision smarter. And I know I'm going to hear it from you guys in the comments because none of you want to hear it, but this is the reality.
I was going to say, Ian, over under on the number of angry comments / emails we're going to get about Arber Xhekaj and why we hate him.
1 million. Like, and I get it because he, like I mentioned, like the Xhekajs have this cult of personality. They have this, like, people love them, and for good reason.
They're magnetic.
They're magnetic. They are memories of a throwback. They are memories of players you grew up watching. And that's why I think it's very easy to fall in love with these guys. I love these guys. But like, it's a different league now, and you have to learn to control yourself in that situation. And I just don't think that he has gotten to a point where I'm comfortable saying he's figured it out. I don't think he has.
Ian, I insist that Locked On Canadiens hates Arber Xhekaj and wants him to die.
Yeah, man, I said 8 times that I love him, and everyone will go, see, he said that he didn't learn. That means he hates him. And I'm just like, all right, man, cool.
Yes, but
it must be hard listening to a podcast when you only get every 8th word. Like, I just have a hard time. I'm not pre-arguing with people. It's not happening.
Let's wrap this around. Okay, let's wrap this back because I know we will talk a little bit about Florian Xhekaj as a bubble player in our next segment. The parts of the game that Arber Xhekaj has that we really love, right? Do we think, let's say, for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, like that's going to add a lot to the Montreal Canadiens as they get closer and closer to being a contending team?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it is the reason why the Canadiens are so invested in making this player a complete NHLer, because they see the gifts. The gifts are obvious. They are like late in the third period. I think it was Owen Tippett coming over the blue line. He almost laid him out. Someone must have yelled at him to keep his head up because he dodged it at the last second. Xhekaj flattened him, and in an incredibly legal way. Like,
Yes.
I cannot stress enough that the raw talent and the skills are there. I also thought just the way he thought and saw the game on Tuesday night was spectacular. His computer is working so much faster. It's in those moments where he sees the red mist, where he just can't he can't pull himself out of that and recognize we're about to go on the power play. Maybe I just stinky glove this guy. Maybe we both sit for 2, and that's fine. But instead, I'm just taking my team completely off the power play, putting them shorthanded, and we're going to get scored on. Like, especially if you're going to be a penalty killer, Arber Xhekaj, you can't be doing that.
100%. All right. Up next, we are going to talk about bubble players and who's the closest to making the NHL. Those spots are dwindling, and there's a lot of guys vying for that spot. I can't wait for this next segment. Let's start this segment by reminding everyone that we have a mailbag episode every Friday, and you can send us mailbag questions. You can send them to us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on social media. We're on TikTok, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Locked On Canadiens. You don't just have to send us mailbag questions. You can send us anecdotes and stuff like that. Today, we got a lovely story from Terry C., including pictures of the time he and his family came to Montreal to watch Game 3 of the playoffs last year. What a game. We love hearing from you guys, so please, please, please keep it coming, and don't forget to mail back questions. We record around dinner time on Friday, so this time there's a game, so we'll record it right after the game, and do not forget. All right, Ian, if I say to you, bubble player, how many guys would you put in that category of this Canadiens team?
I think at forward, and I think that's really what I want to focus on here, is who's going to fill that third line, or that's I'm not even going to call it third line. The numbers don't matter to Marty at all. The wing spot next to the wing spot next to Alex Newhook and Zachary Bolduc. We have Sammy Blais, Joe Veleno, Florian Xhekaj, Joshua Waugh, Owen Beck, and Vinzenz Rohrer. Who, in your mind, we've seen each of these guys play a preseason game.
Yes.
Who is the clubhouse favorite to land that spot? Who do you have playing next to those two on October 8th?
Are we doing the thing where there's what we want to happen, there's what we think will happen, and then there's what Marty wants to happen?
Okay. Yeah, give me 2 answers here. Maybe it's the same answer, but how do you answer both of those?
I think what we want to happen, based on what we've seen so far, I'm very comfortable saying I want to see Florian Xhekaj in that spot. What we think will happen is, I honestly think they're going to give either Blais or Veleno that possibility. I think we've kind of established that Veleno is probably the front runner for that spot. And then what will Marty do is, I think he's going to look at all those players and see who makes the fewest mistakes and go with that guy.
Yeah, I find Vinzenz Rohrer in all of this to be interesting. He can't go to Laval. He would have to go back to Europe. I think with the Zurich Lions, he would have to go back to Switzerland. So I kind of wonder if this is a situation where they go, let's give him a 9-game tryout at the beginning of the season, and then if he doesn't make it, we'll send him back, a la Oliver Kakkonen from last year, right? Like, I
was going to call it the Kakkonen special.
Yeah, exactly that. So remember when we talked about replacing? Remember when we talked about this whole thing all summer of replacing Christian Dvorak, who we just saw in this game? And we were saying they need a left-handed centerman who can take faceoffs.
That's Joe Veleno. No?
You would think so. Joe Veleno was 38% in the draw on Tuesday night. Alex Newhook was 67%.
And I know it's just one game.
I know it's just one game, but they also used Alex Newhook on the penalty kill. I want to see it. I want to see more of it. I kind of wish we saw this team yesterday in the Monday game, because it was a penalty fest and we could have seen them, penalty kill a bit more.
Yeah.
Because I want to see more of Alex Newhook in that situation. I kind of was like, when Arber Xhekaj took that penalty, I was sort of like, yeah, well, we could see this for a little bit, and then didn't last all that long. For that reason, like if Joe Veleno is a winger, I think I would rather have almost anyone else. And that's not to say that Veleno is bad. I probably wouldn't put Blais in. I didn't really like Sammy Blais' game. He was physical, but like very much seems like this year's Pozzetta in that
Yeah.
he's just going to sit in the press box. I don't know that he's going to play all that much.
He didn't speak to me. His play did not speak to me in any way.
Yeah, I thought he was physical, which was great, but like I just didn't see too much else there. Like I think it's I will narrow it down to 3 guys that I would want, and I think it's either Beck, Xhekaj, or Rohrer in that spot. I thought Wall was okay in that spot, but given what we saw from Xhekaj, I kind of want to see him in that spot in the next game, or
I
Beck
really want to see
in
more
that
of him.
spot the next game. Like I want to see someone else there now, because I thought Wall was fine in that spot, but it wasn't like illuminating. And I think a lot of that too, that's a tough assignment for Wah because it's Bulduk's first game as well, right? Like it's a new guy getting used to a new team, new line mates, new building. So I think it's a tough assignment, but the Canadiens they only have a few more opportunities to make their decision when it comes to who's going to make that spot. I think Blais, I don't know that he's played himself out of it, but I certainly my opinion on him hasn't changed. He's the Pozzetta Blunden line sort of replacement for this year.
Yeah. And to those people who are saying, who's Blunden? Exactly. All right. Before we go, our trivia is back. So if you're not a longtime listener, if you're new, we do a trivia at the end of every episode, and then we reveal the answer at the end of the following episode. So yesterday's question, Ian, if I remember correctly, was phrased in such a way that Mason McTavish was named to the Memorial Cup All-Star team alongside this Montreal Canadien. And the answer was?
Arber Xhekaj. In 2022, they were both Memorial Cup All-Stars. Superman answered that one correctly. And it leads well both into this game, considering it was a Xhekaj fest. It was a very Xhekaj-centered coverage all across the board. So today's question is also in honor of those Xhekaj brothers. The Xhekaj brothers each scored in this game. Obviously, Florian scored the Canadian second goal of the game, and Xhekaj iced it on the penalty kill into an empty net. When was the last time the Habs had a pair of brothers score in the same game? Obviously, it was the Kostitsins, right? We don't need to, that part, you can't just tell me it's the Kostitsin brothers. We know. But when was it? Who was it against? If you have those answers, put it in the comments down below this video. Let me know. Let us know how smart you are, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show.
You heard the man, and that's our trivia question, but you can always get in touch with us, as I mentioned, on lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky, Locked On Canadiens on Instagram, Locked On Canadiens on TikTok. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Please tell your friends. We're going to have a really exciting season, so please make sure you join us for the ride. We're super, super excited. You will find my co-host all over social media at Maybe It's Ian. You will find me at The Active Stick. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all tomorrow with something fun that we have planned.